Recording is on.
Awesome. So yeah, we're here at the Build Time Render meetup. We're talking about things related to static site generation, Git-Backed CMSs, and Jamstack style content. So today we have Martin talking about the Decap CMS, and he has a presentation here called Solving Content Management for Developers. Martin, please feel free to take it away.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for inviting me. Good afternoon, everybody, or good evening to some others. We are on different time zones. So today I'm gonna talk about Decap CMS. I am one of the maintainers, and this is focused more for developers. But if you have any questions along the way, I'm not sure how familiar are you with this tool. So this is I was a bit guessing. So this is developer focused. But if you have any questions, like more specific or less specific, ask during the presentation, so we can pivot and talk actually things that are interesting. So a bit of background behind the Decap story. It was initially developed by Netlify. It was called Netlify CMS initially, but then they kind of pivoted elsewhere and they abandoned the project. And after it was unmaintained for a year, there was no activity on GitHub. A lot of users were waiting for their, or contributors were waiting for their pull request to be merged. So were we. And we got frustrated because we recommend this CMS to a lot of our clients and they're happy with it. So we didn't want this to be abandoned. So we reached out to Netlify, with whom we have a bit of a relationship. So we have some, so we also recommend Netlify to our clients, and they said, yeah, okay. So we said, can we maybe take over the stewardship of this project? We don't want it to die. And they said, okay, yeah, let's meet, let's talk. And they actually transferred the project to us. We rebranded it as Decap. And if you have more questions about it, I can go to more details towards the end, but basically that's the story. Now we are maintaining it as like independently. We are not backed by some larger company like Netlify was before. So this is actually an open source community. We are here more like to guide it and have the overview. But we really like the contributions from everyone from the community. I think it's used by everyone from individuals to large companies, but there's hard to know exact figures. All that we know now is that we have more than 18,000 stars on GitHub and 12,000 weekly npm downloads. Yeah, we sometimes hear from some large companies that they're actually using it, which is great. So my story real quick is that I have background in front-end development, and I've been a Jamstack fan since 2019 when I joined PM, where we started working with this approach. And currently I'm the team lead still at the same company. So PM is a digital agency helping clients build websites, mostly marketing focused and presentation focused and so on. And yeah, we initially were the heavy users of the Decap, and now we are actively maintaining it. And I already heard this before, so but still, maybe if you can share who uses Git-based CMSs and who uses Decap. And I think for most of you, the answer is yes and yes, right?
Yeah, certainly for me, I've used Decap going back to the Netlify CMS days. Yeah, for me, it was a really transformative project. I feel like I'd never heard of this concept of kind of a browser-based CMS that talks through an API to a Git repository. And yeah, I fell in love with that concept. I still use this concept to this day in a lot of our projects. So yeah, I'm definitely familiar with it. And I know some other folks have mentioned. I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in with their experience, but yeah, certainly somewhat familiar with the concept.
Okay, thanks, Jim. So a quick overview here about of the CMS landscape. And I think we are all familiar with this, so I'm just gonna go quickly through it. So we have on one hand the traditional or monolith CMS, which is like a all-in-one solution. We need a server database and a theme that's developed by someone else. We can do our own, but it's complicated. It's difficult to maintain. Editors have too much rights. It's complicated for them. They can break things, especially when you have to update. We have a huge vendor lock-in, security issues, and so on. So we kind of try to steer clear. I think we learned that in recent years in development that there are not many use cases for this type of CMS. And we're mostly choosing between API-based and Git-based. And again, I think we have understanding here what those are. So, but still, to set the tone, so they are both have decoupled front end and back end, which creates separation of concerns and is huge security improvements towards the traditional CMSs. But an API based still requires a server and a database or a cloud subscription that provides this. And an example of this is a Contentful or Storyblock or many others. There's huge competition recently in this space. So what's problematic or demanding about this is that we really need a full setup or a cloud subscription. And we have to integrate this with the front end, which can be challenging if we have a front end that doesn't have like a library to integrate it with the CMS. So usually, main CMSs would provide a React library, but not a Hugo library. So if you're using Hugo, this is a problem. Then what's great here is that we have a centralized database of content, and we can consume this via an API to multiple tenants. So if we have a mobile app and a website and I don't know some event, we can really store content in one place, which is great for like really large content repositories, and it's very scalable. We can have real-time collaboration and so on. So the API is very performant. So the best use cases are large marketing sites and e-commerce, large-scale operations. And on the other hand, we have Git-based CMSs, which what Decap is. And here we have content stored in Git, which I hope we are all familiar with. So this is a this is the generally accepted version management system. With this, we store versions, and so we know who did the change and everything else. So you can, imagine a Git-based CMS sort of a visual editing layer on top of Git for non-technical people. An example of these are Decap and Tina CMS and many others. So after Netlify abandoned Netlify, there were some other forks of this project. One was Static CMS, I think, which is now abandoned, sadly. So the limit here is that the API of Git providers like GitHub is not exactly developed for this kind of operation, and it has some limitations. So if we have huge API demands, this is not the best choice. But for everything else, I think it is, because it's easy to set up and maintain, it's secure, so all your data is in your Git repository, stored with your Git provider, which handles all your security, permissions to code, and so on. We get the great versioning, we get branch-based environments, so we can set up, for instance, a developed branch, which then can have its own CMS, so editors can work on new features and we can merge them later on, which can be quite hard with API-based CMSs. Quite challenging, but here we bring this to our already existing continuous integration workflow that we have with, I don't know, GitHub Actions or Netlify or so on. And I think the use cases here are the widest. So from personal websites to marketing sites of almost any size, like there is a ceiling, and I will come back to that at the end. For documentation sites, it's really popular, and I think also it's great for small-scale e-commerce projects. And now I prepared a sort of a scheme or a diagram of how this works on the surface. So with Git workflow, so we are developers and editors, we're all committing to the one Git repository, and then it's building on our dev platform, be it GitHub, Pages, Netlify, Vercel, so on, and then serving to users. So this is quite straightforward. And with API-based CMSs, this gets more complicated because we have our layouts stored in Git repository, and then we also have the content database, and we have to consume them both with our front end. So we actually have to consume this and save to on multiple levels. So this, if you can imagine that we need another environment, this gets, so we have to duplicate this across multiple environments. So I suggest thinking before using, so really, considering this when using API-based diagram. So I wanted to show this in action. And since we are all familiar with the process, I think we can. So I have prepared just a simple, how should I say, initial setup, but I think we can skip that if everybody is familiar with this. And I just have here a Hugo project, and I have Hugo server and Decap server. So I'm running this locally, and then how this works, or maybe Dushan, you don't know this, so I can quickly go through this. So how we develop this locally. So if I have run this Hugo and Decap locally, and I have CMS on my local host, and if I create a new post locally, local host post, and I save it, I'm gonna see the changes in my local repository. But I also have a remote repository on GitHub, and I have to have this deployed. So I need a GitHub or any other Git provider, in this case GitHub, and a Netlify as the development platform. Set this up, and then I can have this on a test URL provided by Netlify. And here, if I save a new post, so this will be online post. And so this post now talks to the GitHub API, and I get a new commit. Oh, wrong branch. Okay, so does everybody follow here? Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So you make the change on your website, and that kicks it back to this code repository where you can see the update. And then at that point, it seems like a CI process would, are you about to show that? Like a CI process would kick off that would then deploy that change back to the publicly viewable website?
Yes. So in deploys, we have created an online post. And so this is on Netlify, and on our URL, we can see this on our blog. So we have this new online post that we created. Okay, so what I also wanted to show is a feature that we have is editorial workflow. And this one works with pull requests actually, but is only available for on GitHub. So this is, if you're using any other backends, unfortunately unavailable. I set up a different branch here, so you can check out this repository. It's public. So my name / Decap -demo. So I have editorial workflow branch, and if I switch to it locally, so all you have to do to set this up is set publish mode editorial workflow. If maybe anyone is not familiar, this is the Decap config. So everything we do with Decap, we configure it in this one YAML file. So we can basically create widgets and modules and so on. And with this setting, we get this workflow tab, and this looks like a Kanban workflow, and we can add new posts. So workflow post. And what is this is gonna do is gonna open a pull request on our repository. And we have a tag here which says Decap CMS draft, and then in our workflow tab now we see what we created, our workflow post in drafts, but we can move it around to review, and then we can set this workflow with editors in our team. So for instance, one is creating the entries, another one is responsible for reviewing, and they can then move it to ready. And when we are moving this around, we can also see on our pull request that the tag is changing. So pending publish means that we are ready to publish. So why this matters for developers is that we really have always the control on both the CMS side and the GitHub side. So in our where developers like our native environment is. So this is always on both ends, right? And I find this really great from my developer point of view. And if I publish this new entry, what I did now is I close this pull request automatically, and it merged to our branch. I have to go to editorial workflow. So I merged this commit, and the post was published on this deploy preview. Yes, this is it. This one was our post. So that's a great feature, and some some really nice contributor is working on something really great to enhance this really soon. I hope we get it merged, and that feature is gonna basically, where we have the preview now, is gonna add all the history from the pull request. I'm really looking forward to that. Okay, and so another thing I want to talk today about is, Jim, you mentioned previews.
Yep.
And I think that's a really great feature here, but also quite complicated. So let's dive in. I also have a branch, editor components and previews. And this is, I think, where the magic happens actually. So this really gives us a lot of customizability, if that's a word. And this is how we can really extend Decap to match our static site generator and bring components to our Markdown editor. And I'm talking about two different things, so I want to talk about both editor components and then previews. So and then we also have custom widgets. So let me just open up so this is my editor components branch. And first, so this is what we can get. Okay, so this is a nice preview. As you see, it's kind of really looks like this one here. So we have the same font, we have the same font size, so we're missing the header, but we apply the same styles, and this changes actually in real time. As I type here, I can see changes here. And you see we here have components that I custom built for my Markdown widget. And this depends from somewhat depends on your static site generator. Here we're using Hugo, which works really well here because it has shortcodes. Some don't have this. We also don't have out of the box MDX support, which some SSGs do. So maybe this we can work on in the future. But for instance, with Hugo, this is a really great feature. So shortcuts are basically small components that you can use in Markdown files. And here I have a shortcode button, which accepts, so basically it's a component that accepts href and text. And I am going to save it with this editor component. So this is basically like defining fields here for my blog posts. I can define custom fields for this component. So text and href are gonna correspond to this. Okay, here it's inner, and href inner is what we get between the tags in Hugo. And if I open the post here, so this is how a shortcode looks when it's used. So again, I have the power as a developer to use shortcodes in my VS Code or other editor, and the editor, as in person editor, has the power to now add this shortcode himself in the CMS through this drop down. And to add this button to the drop down, I have to find my index.html where we install Decap. So this is we install Decap by adding two files, index CMS and config.yaml or any other. And I'm going to, so this is how I define the editor component here. Basically, I can also, of course, have this instead of this script. So that's how it is in the docs within script text. But I outsourced it to another file. But so we have a global variable or function CMS, which is the exposed Decap CMS that is built with React. And we have some options here. So one of them is to register editor component, adds the fields like you would normally do, and then define the pattern. So this one is Hugo specific, but you can also have this with other SSGs. I don't know an example, but for instance, can't remember an example other than this. And we have from block, to block, and to preview. And from block is gonna look for all the instances that match this regex pattern in our markdown. So this one will match. And I'm gonna then it's gonna fill these fields and render them like this. So like fields in my markdown editor. And then to block is when I'm saving this, it's gonna save this to markdown. And then to preview function, and this comes in handy when we're doing previews, which we'll look at now. And so this is how we want it to render as HTML. So this looks familiar to the button here. So we want this class button. And I have these classes defined in some style sheet. And so this is how we're rendering it. As I mentioned, it's complicated. So I hope this is somewhat understandable. So are there any questions here?
I think I'm with you. So, basically Decap gives you a standard set of field widgets. So on the left-hand side, the fields that you're editing, there's like text fields and probably image uploads, et cetera. But if you want something custom, you basically have to, like, for instance, this button is something that you created. It's not something that's in there. Like another example could be like maybe like a color picker widget or something along those lines, right? You could essentially design one of those yourself through the process that you just outlined. And then provide like the markup for what the widget would function like, and then also provide through the API the function of what it would look like in a preview as well. And you could assign styles and markup to that as well, right?
Yes,
it's very cool. So and you're about to you're going to show like so that makes sense. If I was going to do a custom widget, if I wanted, like, for instance, I think Hugo is an awesome static site generator as well. So and I know that like it uses Go templates versus the Decap CMS uses React. So if I wanted to get like my normal fields that aren't custom fields to the previews to work, would I follow a similar process to this to actually override like the display to make it look like my actual site display?
Yes, a good question, and I can answer that. So, yeah, as you mentioned, Hugo uses Go templating and Decap uses React. So this makes it unfortunately uncompatible. And to make this happen, you basically have to work twice, which is not such a problem anymore if you use like a GitHub Copilot or Cloud Code. They really know this stuff now. So the process with these tools is much faster. But you still have to duplicate it if you're not using a React-based framework. And And how we do that? So here in my index HTML, so let's revert this. I also brought in a block editor preview, which I have here. So this is similar to creating editor components. We have some methods that we can bring in previews. And with this command register preview style, we bring in the style of the entire site that we're having. So on the style department, it's independent of our SSG, so there's no compatibility issues. You just have to, I think it only supports parse CSS. And so Hugo does this when you have, so when you create render the site in the public folder is the output, and I have style parse CSS, and this is, I brought it here. And so this is gonna now enable me to have the same style on my actual website and on previews. But when I have the layout. So this is the layout for my blog that we can see here for instance here. So this is the layout, right? I have title, description, and content. Forget the author for now. So title, description, content. We can see, so this looks like HTML with some templating, but here we can't use HTML because we have to use basically React DOM or Shadow DOM, and so that's why we have this helper function H, which is basically a shorthand for React's create component. So this is basically the same as React.create component. No, create element, sorry. Create element. And so with this, we can create HTML tags. So this would create a div with class name post preview, and then this creates an H1 tag, paragraph tag with class description, and a div. And if I inspect, if I open DevTools on my, let me just, I'm just gonna enlarge this. So I hope this is readable now. So I have rendered H1 and paragraph with class description. But as you see, unfortunately, there's no way to basically take this layout and translate it automatically. You have to do it twice. So that's maybe the only downside of combining Hugo with Decap. And yeah, once we have this React class post preview, we register preview template, and this is what we get. So this is really powerful. Where it gets complicated is using relation widgets, and so some data that's not immediately on this site. So, and we get this a lot, of course, like some sites are heavy with that. And Dushan here is an example, knows about an example where we have that. And I have that example if anyone wants to look into that, but it's quite complicated. So I don't know if we have the time or.
I mean, I think the relations sound super interesting. But before we move to that, I had kind of just a question around this stuff here. So it seems like, the stuff, as far as styles are concerned, you're basically getting that for free because you can use the generated styles from your static site generator and you just reference it. That's awesome. And then in terms of templating, you have to basically translate Go templates into React code. So I would assume that something like if you had logic in there, for instance, say you had like a description and after a certain number of characters, it gets truncated and ... you would basically recreate that logic in React in order to have the preview kind of follow those same parameters, correct?
Yes. And also one thing that's complicated is when you have JavaScript, for instance, sliders or galleries, that is also some extra like effort. It's possible, we did it before, but yeah.
Nope.
We're looking into some how we would make this more agnostic, but it's really tough.
Yeah. And then in terms of, so if I was using a React project, say I was using Next.js or something along those lines, like how it seems like it's a lot easier. Am I still recreating the components or am I just like pointing them somewhere to, because I assume, still the default previews would be different than the site styles unless I'm doing a little bit of work making sure the templates align, or am I incorrect there?
Yes, I think it's much easier because you already get React elements, right? And this is this is a React element, and if you can expose from your component a React element, this is gonna work.
Yeah.
And yeah, but unfortunately I don't have an example with that.
It'd be the same process that you just basically would copy it. You'd still copy it over to the same way you're doing here, but you wouldn't have to translate it basically. Is that?
I think it's possible to also just include it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because so you can install Netlify CMS or Decap CMS now also via npm, so you can include it with your so if you're using like a webpack or probably something else now, you can introduce it as in the same build process as your static site generator, right? So, and in that case, you can get those components in the same build. But of course, there are some demands with previews here, so it's not given that this is gonna work, but it's possible. So, yeah, as you said, in the worst case scenario, you can easily copy what you have because it's already made with React.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. And sorry, I'd love to see your entity reference example. I've done a couple sites where I like made my own kind of like because Hugo, like in order to make that work, like sometimes you can implement it different ways. So I'm curious how you guys do it. And yeah, it's pretty interesting because I think Martin, we had talked last time that we chatted about, I did a video series called 20-Minute Hugo on our meetup years ago. And like I showed how to do like component-based architectures in Hugo. And so there's so many different ways to do these things. So if you have examples, I'd love to see what you're doing in terms of like entity references.
Oh, so relation.
Oh, sorry, relations. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have it. I'm just gonna try to pull it up real quick. So now I'm slightly improvising. So this is gonna be I'm looking at another project here.
Sure.
Okay, this one is a bit larger. So what I have to do in this case, I'm bringing in, I'm setting an initial state, and I have a collection called tags and tags collection, and there's news, and there's newsletter data. So these are all relations, right? I have so this is basically a news article that, so the user can select tag from a relation dropdown. So tags are, I don't know, there are 10 possible tags, and user chose, I don't know, 2. And so I have to, on mount event, I have to get the collection, and then this git blame keeps jumping up. Maybe there's a way to disable it. Maybe now it will stop. So I'm getting the text from my markdown now first, and then so in markdown it's stored as tags. Let me just find some. Let me just bring in a markdown actual example. Tags. Okay, so this one has tags, right? But this is not in English, so but it doesn't matter. So it has this underscore index because Hugo. So I have to trim it out, and then I have a method get collection, and I know I have a collection tags, and this is how I get the data from tags collection, which is now an array of all of the tags, right? So I have tags of the current post, and then collection, which are all the possible tags, and then so then I have subcomponents here. So this is actually a real world example, though it's quite complicated. I have tags and tags collection in this article hero subcomponent, and I'm gonna bring this one over. So this is the article hero, and this is how I get the tag data. So I also need to do to lowercase and replace. So this is I would say a hacky approach, because I need to get, like, I think from a title I need to get more slugified version, and then it's possible to actually do it. There's probably a simpler approach somewhere, but so this is how it's possible.
And so this is being implemented through a custom field widget?
This is a relation widget.
Yeah. And is that included by default? Are you leveraging an included relation widget, or are you creating that from scratch for this project?
This is a relation widget is a widget on Decap CMS that can bring so relation widget allows you to have data from another collection. So if I go here, so these are collections, right? And we have pages and blog, and here on this post I could have basically a drop down, a select widget that would allow me to select one of the entries from the other collection.
Nice.
And so this is what I'm bringing in here. I hope it makes sense. So
those are super useful in the real world. It's like constantly pulling like taxonomies or tying things together. So I think that's awesome that Decap supports that.
Decap actually has a lot of features when you go further, and so this is maybe what I also wanted to talk about, but we really dive in far here. So maybe to speed run through some of the benefits, but I think we covered them a lot already. And maybe this is just a framework or how different roles basically can have different benefits from this type of CMS. So for editors, like I said, you can really edit only what you need. There's no fear of breaking something, or in the worst case scenario, you break the builds and deploy stops are stuck on, I don't know, commits with that was last working. We have previews if developer is willing to do them. Editorial workflow can be great. We have strong language support, which is actually really important for us, being a small language group. So we always need English as a secondary language. And for developers, I already mentioned a lot of this. And yeah, for managers or people who manage your finances, I think this is really important. There's really no cost with Decaps because it's open source, and all you have to pay for is your GitHub subscription, and of course other subscriptions that you're already paying for. So there's no additional cost. There's low vendor lock-in. You can, as you saw, so this is like just a config over I mean, you can get deeper than a config, but in essence you can just replace a config and you can switch your CMS. It's so fast to develop, low cost of maintenance, and so on, but there are some limitations. So when not to choose a Git-based or Decap, when you need real-time collaborative editing, like Figma has. When you see a mouse of other editor, you can't have that here. The API does not allow it. When you need complex user permissions, Decap doesn't have those. Or you have to basically do some extra work, which we've done before. But if you need really something complex, this is not ideal. If you are a large e-commerce site, if you are a multi-tenant application, so if you want to consume from multiple front ends, and as we talked about, if you are a non-React SSG and you want to really do a lot of previews, and some other things to be wary about. So Git's API limitations, and you have to use digital asset manager for media files, because Git is not the best tool for that. It's possible, but there's I think some limitations, and no one will like you if you force them to clone a 20 gigabyte repository. So I prepared a quick decision tree on how to decide which CMS to use. First question: will there be someone else than developer editing? If the answer is no, you don't need a CMS. Developers can edit without that. Do you need complex permissions or real-time collaboration? If you do, choose API-based CMS. And then if you do need a centralized content database for multiple front ends, you still need to use the API-based CMS. For everything else, I think Git-based is the choice for you. Okay, so we've done this. And then I also promised on the beginning, I'm just gonna mention where the ceiling is, I think, for a Git-based like a marketing site. So we did a project for a client, Maestra, which is a hospitality group in Croatia. And we're building 10,000 pages across 7 languages. We have 35 collections in our Decap CMS. And thanks to Hugo, we can ship this each deploy in 2 to 3 minutes, which with before I think was, I don't know, an hour or even more. And yeah, so being decoupled, we can handle millions of visitors during peak season, which is right now. And I mentioned real-time collaboration is not possible, but we still have like same-time collaboration. So multiple editors can still do edits at the same time. And we still haven't gotten any Git conflict. So I don't know how Git does that, but it's actually, we have zero problems so far. So, and we're also leveraging deploy previews a lot, and it works great. And as I mentioned, a ceiling, I think this is the ceiling. So around 10,000 pages, this is where GitHub is on the limit. I don't know how it is with maybe some other Git providers, but GitHub is one of the strongest, and we can get, we can deplete those API rates quite easily. So this is kind of the top. Yeah, that's it from me. I was a bit longer than anticipated, but I hope I answered some of the questions along the way. But I hope I have time. So if anyone else also wants to ask, I'm glad to answer.
Martin, that was awesome. Thank you so much. I think I contributed to you going over by inserting questions as you went. I have a few questions I would love to ask, but is there anyone else that wants to ask anything before I dive in? I can get started on one, and as if folks want to do something, either feel free to drop something in a chat or just unmute yourself or turn on your camera, and that way I'll know to go to you. But the first thing I want to ask, Martin, is just I think a lot of the things that you described, they really resonate with me as well. So this idea that it's a CMS that doesn't require hosting, that lives right in your browser, that uses this standard Jamstack pipeline of like writing to living in Git and then building with CI/CD. It just feels so natural, such a natural way to do these type of sites. And the fact that your content editors and your developers are now speaking the same language, and it's easy to go back and debug any kind of weird issues, like why did that thing disappear, or why did this happen here? You can go back and see the history. It just makes so much sense to me that I'm surprised that this approach is not more ubiquitous across like different companies, different applications. Like I'm surprised there's not a ton of competition in this space. And I'm curious your thoughts on this. Is it because it's such a niche space that, it's specific to people who want this very niche thing? Or is it more that the awareness of this type of architecture is not widespread and mainstream? Yeah, I'm just curious your thought, because I'm building something similar that like we've talked about. And I'm so surprised every day that the competition is not much hotter in this area.
That's a really good question that I've asked myself before. I think it's not commercially viable for a Git-based CMS to exist, because it's free. Like we can't make money with this. So we're maintaining this because we use it ourselves. Yep. We've used it before. Netlify had incentive because this really brought a lot of customers to them. But in the end, this is like you switch it on and it's done. So there's no, I can't charge, like we can't charge customers for being it a GitHub repository, right? Mm-hmm. On the other hand, there are possibilities. So making like a proxy that would enable like real-time collaboration, that would improve the API that GitHub has, and I think some CMSs do that. And So, and also I think there's a project called Decap Bridge that also handles authentication without Netlify, which is great. And yeah, and like you mentioned, this is what. So even though it's free, you can't make money off it. It's still weird that it's not like more buzzing in like mainstream with mainstream, I don't know, YouTubers or like just this general or podcasts, or like this cultural shift is not like, this is not mainstream, but once you get here it's like, but this makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm asking the same question myself.
Yeah. I wonder if awareness comes from marketing spend, and marketing spend comes from the ability to make profit. Maybe that's part of it. But yeah, I'm always kind of shocked that it's not like there's not more people in the space, which is a good and bad thing, I guess. I'm going to keep asking you a couple of questions. Folks, I know we're over time, so if you have to drop off, totally understand. Or if you have questions, just interrupt me. Just open your mic up and start talking, and I'll stop. But actually, you're talking about the Decap bridge. So I know in the past, so in our project, there's a few Git backends that support Pixie, which is pretty. It's for folks who aren't aware, an OAuth 2 grant type, right? So if you're using authentication to a different app, so for instance, your backend might be GitHub or GitLab or Git, you could use a Pixie workflow to do that. And so GitHub famously does not support Pixie, although there's been some movement recently, and I think we're on the same threads, Martin, potentially, if you're following any of those community posts. I think I've seen your name on there.
Probably.
Yeah. So there's some movement there, but it's not. It still requires like a backend server. So I'm curious, are you in the past? I know Netlify ran one of the bridge services. Are you guys running one for the community or for yourself or for your own clients, or how are you managing that at this point?
Oh, Decap Bridge is unrelated to us.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
totally independent project.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And so do you guys use Netlify's bridge to do GitHub?
Yeah. We use, it's still the easiest. This is how we started. We're actually trying to get away from it because Netlify deprecated it. Actually,
Gotcha.
it's called Git Gateway.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We're trying to get away from it, but being when we have time project, so or when someone else does something, we merge it. So things take time, but yeah, we want to become more agnostic and maybe also someday offer something like this. But yeah, so far Netlify is the default choice also on the docs, but there's a guide how to spin up your own authentication, and also there's Decap Bridge, and yeah, there's stuff in this space.
Cool. Yeah, and for folks who aren't aware, like if you use GitLab, for instance, you don't need a bridge, right? So you could just use standard Pixie. They used to support implicit auth, but that's not as secure anymore. So now folks tend to do Pixie, and Git supports it as well. So like in those type of projects, you actually don't even need a bridge, which is kind of cool. Now, I noticed you mentioned like in the talk and also on one of those last slides that large data sets can potentially have an issue with speed. And I'm curious. So I would always just assume that, if your generator can build it fast in CI, where's the bottleneck come, I guess, in terms of the place where you could get yourself into trouble with a large data set using Decap?
With Decap CMS, there's the problem of your browser rendering. So like, each entry is like a div, which is not expensive, but when you have 10,000 HTML elements with child elements to render, your browser will die, or worse, it will kill your computer. So that's the actual problem.
Gotcha.
Maybe there's like a good front-end solution for now. So that's one thing, and the other thing is the API. And Git providers do this differently, but they all have a limit how much you can consume, and unfortunately each entry, so if I go here and now when I'm rendering this collection, so each one of these is one request to GitHub. And if I have 10,000 of this in 1 hour, GitHub will block me.
Oh, so this is this actually builds off GitHub directly. It's not building off compiled assets in the browser.
No. This is
Oh.
yeah.
I assume that the previews were. I mean, obviously, because they might not be published. But I for some reason I thought this was like, I thought you're compiling JSON or something behind the scenes.
Yeah, if you
Gotcha.
inspect, so there's so this is basically a Netlify function, but it is just a proxy. So this Git gateway is this Netlify function, and it basically redirects the request to GitHub API.
Yep.
And each of these hashes is basically a GitHub request, right? So I have 2 here. But if I open like a project that has many more, we're gonna start. Yeah. Okay, Dushan. Bye.
Bye, Dushan.
Yeah. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, that was perfect. Stephanie put a question in the chat as well. She was curious why the project's called Decap.
Oh, because this is shorter for decapitation, which is like I don't know what's the word, but comes from headless, right? When you get decapitated, you're headless.
That's what I thought as well. The idea that, and for folks who aren't familiar, like headless being, you could use this CMS with different projects, right? Like it's not tied to Hugo by any means. You could use it with a variety of static site generators or different sites.
It's a weird word. Decoupled, I think, is better, but yeah.
No, it's a great.
We being a like marketing agency had some creative hours and came up with this.
I think, yeah.
And some people actually didn't like it and found it offensive initially in Discord, or I think it was Slack back in the time. But I think it's like, yeah. Thanks, Ben. I agree. It's fun.
Oh, I like the name. I like the name too. I think it's funny. That's awesome. Yeah. Any other questions? Sorry, I just have one last one, I guess, and then I'll let everyone go. Around permissions, obviously your Git platform might have different roles and permissions to do different things. So I don't know if you all differentiate between someone who can publish a post versus like submit a draft of a post, and if that's based on GitHub user permissions. First of all, is that possible? Is that something that you're doing currently, or is it all?
Let me introduce you to the furthest open issue on Git. Decap issues. Number, guess the number.
1, 3? 2.
Number 2. Rows.
Okay.
Not implemented yet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm scared to look that up. I'm probably on this thread somewhere.
Yeah. So if we dive in here, there are it's described what's the problem, but the problem is the API. It's basically not safely possible. So we can fake permissions, but so you will always have permissions if you know how to come around it. So on the front end, we can hide stuff, but that's not true That's not through authentication,
Yep.
so or authorization, and that's why this is not done yet.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, I've had the same kind of thought process too. So I mean, there's like, and then the other set of permissions, which would arguably be harder than who can, because you could potentially, theoretically, you could protect a branch, right? You could say only these type of users can push to this branch, and so maybe you could create a draft, but you couldn't submit, and that makes sense. But the harder one would be, okay, this person can edit events, which is one content type, but they can't edit news, which is another content type, and that's just like writing.
So how you can do that? So that there's a workaround, which is, I don't know if it's mentioned anywhere. You can do, if you use Netlify again. So this is how I would do it on Netlify.
Yep.
You do multiple Netlify projects from the same repository, and so you configure that each project uses different config.
Yep.
And you allow, so for instance, now I have Decap demo. Okay, so this is gonna be the root access CMS, and then I'm gonna do Decap demo news, and I will only create a CMS config for the news section, and I will tell Netlify, okay, on deploy, just so take this config.
Yep.
And then when I'm inviting users, I am inviting different users to different Netlify projects based on their roles. The problem is they will have different links.
Yep.
But that's the workaround that we came up with.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, this is great. This is awesome. And I guess that kind of dovetails into like the concept of open authoring. Is that still something that you guys are like pushing or thinking about? Do you use it on any sites? Like, and just for folks who haven't heard of it, it's like the idea that you could have a documentation site for a tech project, right? And then you could have a button that basically says, "Hey, do you have a GitHub account? You want to make a suggestion to our content?" They could make the suggestion. It would open a PR. Obviously, they wouldn't have permissions to merge it, but you would be able to take community contributions.
We have that.
Yeah. Is that something that you guys are like? I know that was a feature that was put in a while back. Is that something that you're using at all on any of your projects?
Yeah, actually, on our.
Oh yeah, makes sense. Yeah, there you go.
That's the only place where we use it.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah. Well, this is a perfect software, like a big open source project, right? That's exactly where.
Yeah. But this is the only one that I'm working on. But I hope people are working on it, are using it. It's a great feature. I haven't found it anywhere else to be used, but
it's another example of like one of those things that I feel like gives the Git-Backed CMS a huge advantage over like an API. I mean, you could obviously implement it in other ways, but everybody already has the GitHub account, right? So it really makes that process seamless, and it kind of works the way that Git is intended to be designed to work. So yeah, it's very cool. Okay. Well, I don't want to keep everyone too long. Does anyone have any last minute questions? Speak now. Okay, I think we can probably conclude then. Thanks again, Martin. Thank you so much for coming on and talking with us. This was a great presentation. It was super interesting, and yeah, really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I'm really glad I joined. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, have a great evening, rest of the day, and yeah, I hope to find you on some GitHub issues.
Oh yeah, if you search my name through the Decap HQ, you'll find me. I'm sure. But yeah, and this is super late for Martin, so he stayed up late to bring this content to everyone. So again, thank you so much, Martin, and yeah, we'll talk again soon.
Okay, bye.